Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Edna White, your host of Keeping It Real on Purpose. I am introducing you to the podcast for all around women with all the challenges of everyday life, thinking, and limiting beliefs around life that we're going to change because we're going to talk about relationships, love, business, to help you live your life purposely. Again, this is your host, Edna White. I am your life purpose coach. I coach on generational curses, sexual abuse, and I am your deliverance to your next step in your business. Today's guest, I am so delighted and so excited to have today with us none other. And I hope I don't mess her name up because, audience, you know I do it. Nijaah Howard. She is the single mom's coach. You can reach her at www.nijaahhoward.com. She helps single mothers and their sons to overcome systemic injustice and negative stereotypes, building self-esteem and competence double fold for the mom and for the son. Welcome, Nijaah.
Oh, thank you so much, Edna, for having me today. It's a pleasure. And you did pronounce my name correctly.
Oh, I'm getting better. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here. Tell us about Nijaah and her business as a single mom's coach.
Yes, well, thank you for having me. My journey is a long one, but I know that I knew I wanted to make an impact on single mothers who are raising sons because that was my story. I started out spending well over a decade in the New York City family court system, battling back and forth with my son's dad, and really just being manipulated, bullied, taken advantage of, being controlled. And a lot of this happened mainly because I was in poverty. I didn't have money. I didn't have the only thing that was holding me together. And I say, well, I shouldn't say only, but I had God and I had my education. And so because I had those two things, I wasn't able to be railroaded as heavy as I probably would have if I didn't have my education and if I didn't have a relationship with God. So having those things is very, very important. And so I remember going back and forth. By the time my son was about 15, I had even spent time incarcerated in Rikers Island, no fault of my own, but this is the kind of manipulation that happens when you're poor. And if someone has money over you, and it was very, very difficult. And I just knew that I had to stay on the course and never give up. So I just kept getting up every freaking morning, as hard as it was. And I kept pushing through. By the time my son turned 15, I had graduated, where I no longer had to go to court. And it was really a time for me to do a lot of introspection, a lot of reflection, and really finding myself. From there, I would have to say it took me about 7 years. One of the things I always encourage my mothers when I'm speaking with them is don't rush back into a relationship. Okay. Don't rush into, something that will distract you, but rather really take time to invest in yourself and build up your self-worth again, build up your self-esteem, build up your courage, build up your voice. Build up your money, build up your paper, use that time to kind of recalculate who you are and who you were meant to be as a queen in this world.
And that's really important. I always talk about that too, because I talk about, and it's funny, you said that relationships, we were talking about relationships yesterday, but it was funny that we always talk about relationships, romantic. As soon as you hear that word romantic, I mean relationships, we say, oh, it's romantic. But relationships have to do with friends, familial, and romantic.
Right.
And we don't have so much emphasis on our relationships with our family as much as we have with our romantic. Can you talk about that? And especially when you said don't rush into the next relationship.
Right. Yeah. It's so important because, see, relationships require work. Um, you don't just go into it and expect it to be rosy and peachy, and it's just not going to be that way. You have to put work into it to get out of it what you want.
Absolutely.
And so, in order to save yourself the energy to remember, you're in healing process, and when you're healing, the least thing you need is distraction.
Right.
What you need in that time is as much time to kind of understand who you are again. And so many women jump into these relationships with these men, and these men are unfortunately not mature enough, or they're not raised by strong women, so they come to the table with all these lacks and may not be as healthy for you. And so what that does is that
great word,
that just it interrupts the work process that God has to do in order to bring you back to focus.
Right.
And so, you kind of have to really sit yourself back and say, okay, let me take this time, no matter how many men come up to you, and try to talk with you, tell them thank you if you want to go out. And I don't have anything wrong with going out on dates and socializing, but really take that time to date yourself, get into who you are again. What was your purpose in life? What is your mission in life? What is your goal in life?
Right.
What do you want out of life? Because once you make yourself whole again, then it's going to be a lot easier to weed out those men who are not there to use you or abuse you, but they're going to be men who are whole, who are going to be attracted to you as well. Right. And that's the kind of men you want to attract, or men who are solid and firm in their own position, because now you found your own pathway.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that you said that they're whole. And we often, as broken people, we always going to look for someone that we can save. We always look for someone who's got a broken wing, and we don't want to do that. We want to find someone who's whole. That means financially, physically, mentally, emotionally. We want to find that whole gambit, and it's not that we want to exclude anybody, but that's what we want to accept, not neglect. We don't want to be someone's nursemaid. We really don't. And I appreciate that with you. So let's get back to moms and sons. How do you connect the mom and the son when things are going awry in their society? So say mom is telling son not to go to jail, right? Not to go to jail. Not to get involved with so-and-so, da-da-da. How do you now, if the son has gotten into trouble, how do you reconnect that?
That's such a great question, and I get questions of sons who are having a difficult time to find their pathway in life. But let me just say that, raising a son doesn't start when they're 15 or when they're 10.
Oh,
no. Oftentimes, you may find that these difficult situations happen because, motherhood kicks in later. But when that happens, it's going to make your job a little bit more difficult to get a grip on and get a handle on.
Right.
So, it's times like that when I encourage my mothers to always connect their sons with mentors or positive male role models that are going to help them, their sons, to really define that manhood pathway.
Right.
Because oftentimes these young men are crying out for some kind of male role model, and some kind of authority figure. Somewhere along the line, you know, see, we're living in a society where 82% of the households are run by women.
Mm-hmm.
And in the African American home, it's nearly 70%. So we have to, mothers must be more intentional about how they raise their sons and the kind of men they put in front of their sons. It's so important. And so if you have a son who's having a difficult time, the best thing that you can do is start to include him, engage him into men who are doing positive things, men who can take him by the hand and say, you know, let me help you, young king. Let me show you how to do this. And that's one of the reasons why I have an organization called Young Men Strong. Young Men Strong is just that. It's an organization, a membership organization where I connect powerful, professional male, ethical male mentors right in our own communities with young men who are growing up in fatherless households.
Mm-hmm.
So that the connection there can now help mothers to kind of recenter their womanhood, but also regain their sense of trust with their sons, that they are the authority, they are to be respected and valued as the queens of the castle,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's so important to make that connection with a grown man who can say, hey, listen, my son is having a difficult time right now. He's having a hard time. Can you help him through it? And oftentimes you're going to find grown men who have now got their life together, but who understands that pathway because he was there. So
Right.
you really want to make that connection between the two.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the first one. The second one I want to say, Edna, is it's so important to establish a real relationship with your son.
Yeah.
And that's why in my mother and son program, it's an empowerment program for both of them, because you really want to make sure that your son knows you and you know your son.
Mm-hmm.
That means you have to build a strong relationship. That means it's not just, you know, how's your day, son? Oh, fine. Okay, good. That's it. No. What did you do today?
Right.
Did anyone start engaging in open-ended questions and allowing that young man to really open up and share with you? Build a relationship that is therapeutic and that is friendly, that is safe, so that he don't look at you as this, you know, just a mom, but you're a mom who he can trust.
Right. And that's, you know, let me just say that what you just said is so paramount. We ask questions not to be nosy, but to empower them, inspire them, and motivate them, and get them to realize what they do is so very important. It's not enough to ask, how was your day? Because that's a yes or a no question. Good or bad, but then it is no comma. There's no comma to explain where it is. But asking an open-ended question precipitates conversation.
Absolutely.
So society has put on us, there's certain mothers who are, haven't let go of the, what do you call it, the umbilical cord. That's different.
Yeah.
That's different than asking, how was your day? And what did you do that was impactful? Because what I say to my sons is, they'll text me and say, have a good day. I'll say, have a productive and abundant day.
Yes.
Okay. And that means everything you do is they start thinking, well, one step means two steps. So they're always thinking, when I say productive, no matter if they made one step, it was productive. They made two steps, super productive. They made three, uber duper, productive.
Yes, yes.
But they're on a productive level as opposed to saying, well, have a good day. Because good can mean anything. That you got out of a situation with the police. That's a good day. But you're still miserable. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And you're still miserable.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
It's so important that mothers dig deep into the nurturing part of themselves. So important that they dig deep because it's there, and we know. And I don't want to talk longer than you because you're the real main guest. Black mothers, colored women of color, they nurtured someone else's children with their breasts, with their breast milk. Okay, they went as enslaved people, served someone else and gave their nutrients to someone else to bring children up. And when they got home, they didn't have enough for their children. We don't want to repeat that cycle. We don't want to do that. What we want to do is, okay, now, may have a whole lot going on, but and I don't want to say I'll be damned, but I'm not going to give more to someone else. I'm going to give to my children.
Yes.
So I want you to talk about giving to your children, and speaking to them the right way.
Oh, that's so important, right? That's so important, especially mothers speaking to their sons. You have to speak life into your sons. What we have to realize as mothers is that we are raising our sons to one day be in the head of household of their wives, and be the fathers
head of the world,
of their children,
the head of the world.
The head. We're the ones who are teaching them that, right? And so we have to be very careful how we speak to our sons. And we have so many moms who don't speak life into their sons. They're speaking down to them. Oh, you just like your daddy. You're just like your shit, and this and that and that.
That's right. Say it. That's the truth.
That's the truth. And talking like that, what you're really doing is you are ripping away his identity of who he is. At the end of the day, you have to come to some kind of realization and realizing that at one point you was in love with his father.
There you go.
At one point, even if and even if you didn't love him, you liked him enough to at least create a child. And so
that's right.
And that's not to exclude those who were taken advantage of, right? That's
we're not talking about them. No, we're not. I understand.
We're not talking about those women, right? We're talking about the women who have made a conscious decision to mutually lay down and have a child, whether it was on purpose or by accident. A beautiful child came out of the union of two people. So when you talk down to that child or berate that child, you are tearing down his self-worth and his self-esteem.
Sure.
And we have to be able to create more of a strength-based language and using more strength-based language to our sons. That means instead of saying, you just like your daddy in a negative way, you could be, you just like your father in a great way. I love the way you walk. I love the way your eyes look. Really affirm his character, his identity. Help him to formulate who he is as a man. Don't take that away from him just because he's growing up in a single parent household.
Right. And some women forget, because I vowed when I had my children, no matter which way he went, I would never disallow or browbeat him. And my children didn't know anything different until late in age. It's like, Mom, why didn't you say anything? Because that was what you're supposed to figure out. I would not say, oh, he's this and he's that, because that would impede on your development as a person. And it's so important. It's so important that we as women keep our womanhood, because we get out of line, because we either the bad part of this is that we can become that the BI person. And that's not who we are. That's not who we are. We're the woman, and BI don't got nothing to do with it, right?
That's right.
So we have to maintain whoa man or woo man, whichever one you want to say, we have to maintain that, which means holding that womb is the holding and nurturing and creating of that man, of that woman, whoever we're holding, we're nurturing, and we're providing guidance. Okay. Yes, there's probably a whole myriad of other issues when the child comes out, but we have, if we're conscionable and if we have no mental illness, I'm sure that we should not lend to the BI situation. There should never be a time that we're talking about that father in a negative light. Never be
That's
a time.
right.
Never be a time. And
That's right. But let me
go
can I
ahead.
just add to
I'm
that?
with you. Go ahead. Extend it.
You know, yeah, one of the things I want to encourage my, women and mothers who are raising sons, absolutely do not talk bad about the father, but that does not mean that you do not have permission to tell the truth.
Exactly.
Right? Because it's very
Exactly.
important that we remain authentic and as humble and transparent as
That's
possible,
right.
but
That's
always
right.
do it from a place of civility and respect. It
Absolutely.
may not be love. It may not be love there,
Right.
but
The
make sure
truth is
that
different.
there's the truth. But
Yeah.
do it with kindness
That's
and
right.
knowing that
That's
into
right.
this child's father.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and so
Exactly.
yeah,
And exactly. And that's what's so important is the truth. I've heard people say when kids go to when the kid's father goes to prison, oh, he went to work. Why would you tell a child that? Because if the child ever gets a glimpse of work, they'd be like, "This is work." They will be so misconstrued. You can't. You got to be honest, but in a softening way, whatever age they are. If
I mean,
daddy's in timeout. If they're five.
that's right. That's right. That's right.
If they're
Absolutely.
five, daddy's in timeout. Okay.
That's right. That's right.
you
That's
know you
right.
you put it to the age wherever they're going to be, when they get in trouble, what do you, daddy's in timeout. Okay, he did something wrong, daddy's in timeout. That's it. And you can do that and make it so much easier for a child, because as we know, children, when they know something from an adult, they have no problem saying, yeah, your daddy's in jail. They have no problems with saying that to you, and you be like, "What's jail? Like, I thought he was at work." And you get that going
Exactly.
on with the kid. Then they come home and ask you, and they're devastated. That's another trauma they have. Why would you want to give your child another trauma? Another trauma.
Exactly.
Because first, they're
Exactly.
not there. Secondly, now they're hearing all this garbage that's being dumped into them. So I love what you do with moms and their sons. I love it. I love what you do. I want to ask you, audience, we're hearing all about, I love what she's talking. I love it, right? And you guys gotta love it. You gotta love it. So tell us about a client that you had that touched your heart, and tell us about how that changed the way you did your practice.
That's a really great question. I had one young lady, and I'm so glad she graduated, but it took her many, many years to really get it together.
Mm-hmm.
And where she had her biggest setback, I should say, and then watching her overcome and find her own strength in her own voice, that was magical for me.
Mm-hmm.
When she came to me, this was a woman who was raising her son and alone, and she was a divorcee. And her husband had remarried and really moved on. And it left her in a place of pure anguish, frustration, bitterness, hate, you name it. She had every emotion under the sun, which was completely validated. I mean, it's understandable whenever someone rejects you or leaves you alone to raise a child by yourself. when
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't the agreement, it's always going to leave you in a very sour state. But this woman really believed in her spirit that she wasn't going to be able to raise her son without this gentleman. And she
Mm-hmm.
was having such a difficult time communicating with him. He was very vindictive. He would do ill things to manipulate her. He would do some real vile things. And instead of ignoring the situation what I mean by that is, and this is what the young lady had a difficult time doing, she had a real difficult time not texting back,
Ah.
not emailing back. If he called, she would call back. Um, Now, there's nothing wrong. Again, let me make something very clear for your listeners, because a lot of moms might think, yeah, but this is the child's father. I want to
Right.
make sure he has this. And you're absolutely right. But there are people who can help mediate the situation. If you cannot find a good mental health professional, counselor, or someone to help mediate, even a family member who
Right.
can oversee what's being said, but is nothing wrong with, let's use this for an example. I always like to use it as an example. This is one of the techniques I would encourage her to use. If her child was going to visit with the father, let's say for the weekend or what have you,
Mm-hmm.
and she had something to say,
Okay.
write it inside of one of those notebooks, one of your child's notebooks.
Okay.
Write it in there. Put the notebook inside of the book bag. Send your child on the way to his dad's.
Right.
When the dad gets back, when the child gets to his father's house, now his goal and job is supposed to go into that bag, look at the book, and see what his responsibilities is that you requested. And from there, he can follow up by responding and writing back, and then putting it back in the book bag. And after the weekend, the child goes back, and then you open up the book and see. But this way, if this is really poor communication between the two of you, this is a great way to establish a level of maturity.
Right.
Because who the hell wants to write back and forth, right? Who
Right.
wants to do that?
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, if it's going to help you to mature in how you effectively communicate for the benefit of the child, because we often forget that the child is who is important, not you, not your emotions. That goes on both parties.
Oh, absolutely.
And so for this mom, she had to learn how to communicate with dad. So she started using this exercise, and long and behold, dad started writing back properly. She started writing back properly, and the communication started to the negative communication started to break down, because now each party is starting to now move on with their life, if you will. They're not so engaged in each
Right.
other anymore. It's like you don't want to be together, but yet you still embarking on each other's life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, and so to minimize any frivolous communication that's not necessary, put it in an email or write it in a book. Have the child, bring it back and forth. That's you and that other parent's communication, booklet.
Vehicle. Yeah.
And she started to really build her own self-worth doing
Right.
that.
Right.
She started to realize that she was enough for her son,
Right.
and that every time her son would have a difficult situation, she began to realize that she can actually handle it on her own,
Right.
without still seeking her ex to be the savior.
Right.
And that's the real power that I want mothers to understand when they're raising sons alone.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that dads are not necessary,
Right.
but God has already given you the tools.
Right.
All you need to know how to do is to know which tool to use, and then how to use it. And then once you learn which tool to use and how to use it, you begin to build your self-worth, your self-esteem, and then you're able to see, and then your son's able to look at you and say, oh, wow, my mom got this.
Right.
I love my dad, and I'm hanging with him. We chill on the weekend.
Right.
But I'm confident that my mother's going to be very good raising me. And that's what you want. Not only do you want to build a trust, you want to build a confidence that you are able to raise him without any fear of lack or,
Right.
I
Of
can't do
confidence,
this.
yeah. Confidence,
A
yeah.
lack of confidence. You
Right.
can do it,
Right.
but you have to know how.
Right.
And that's where the program that I have, the empowerment program, is that we're teaching mothers, you know, accountability, and responsibility, how to do that. How do you bring that into a space? Teaching your son how to obligate himself to you. That means that when he loves you the way he should, then he's going to love his wife and children the way they should.
Okay.
And also, you know, uh, you know, we also want to just make sure that we are helping our sons to realize their self-worth and their value in the relationship, and what that looks like, so that they can show up for their wife and their girlfriend and for their children, that I am king. And now, not just you saying that you're king, but you actually know the steps to become a king.
Wonderful. That's such great information about around and about communication. Thank you so much. Now, what advice would you give someone wanting to pursue a career in coaching, no matter if it's not your niche, but similar to yours? What advice would you give them?
I think one of the things I would probably encourage anyone, not just mothers, anyone who wants to go in the field of helping, um, first you have to make sure that you are fully healed from the hurt that you
Oh,
experienced.
that's good. It's good. It's good. Very good.
Because once you are, fully healed, then you'll be able to tap into places that are uncomfortable and help other people who are going there, and meeting them right where they are and helping them to kind of get out of that space because you've been there.
Right.
And that's the part that, whenever I'm talking to moms, I never put myself in a space of, I'm better than you, or I'm higher than you.
Right.
This is a space where a safe space where we create an environment of, I was right where you were.
Right. Right.
And, and having mothers to trust you,
Mm-hmm.
um, that's when the healing process begins, because they know that you understand fully
Right.
where they are.
Right. Excellent. Audience, I thank you. I just want to peek in on you and let you know that we do appreciate it. Me and Nijaah do appreciate you listening in with us today, because she's a single mom's coach. Okay? And she's helping single mothers and their sons overcome systemic injustice and negative stereotypes. She's building self esteem and competency. So, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time out. And now we want to turn this part of the show to learn about Nijaah. So, Nijaah, the audience and I want to know about you now, okay? We want to know all about what makes you clear clatter, all of that good stuff. So if you had a possibility or an option to put up a billboard in your state, what would it say?
It would probably say, you are enough.
Ooh, you are enough. And why would you say that?
You know, Nowadays we're really living in a time where, um, people are very selfish, self-centered. Many people are feeling very isolated, very much alone.
Mm-hmm.
We have suicides that are happening in the Black community. Um, with the pandemic and everything
Oh
going
yeah.
on,
Mm-hmm.
people are really crying out for help.
Right.
And I think if I was driving on a highway going through a really tough period of my life, and I remember going through periods of my life when I was going through a lot of pain, there were little signs that I would see that would keep me holding on another day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget, and I'll share this really quickly. I was going to work in Manhattan,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember I was on the subway, and I'm sitting there on the subway contemplating taking my life. I wasn't sure how I was going to do it yet, but I know I was tired of living in the world, because it was very hard raising my son and then having, all this bullying and manipulating and control, and really not seeing me for who I was. It was hurtful. And
Mm-hmm.
it made me feel like not being here was probably a better solution. I'm so grateful that while I'm sitting there holding the bar, standing up, I was over this guy and I'm standing over him. And when the train came to a halt, I don't know who wrote this or how they even did it, but on the wall, on the cement wall of the subway, it said, "Don't give up."
Oh, that's good.
And that is exactly what I needed at that moment to
That's
get
excellent.
through that day.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's really excellent. Well, the final question we're going to ask you, what is your favorite color?
Oh, that's so great. Um, my favorite color is red, actually.
Why is it red?
When I was a little girl growing up,
Mm-hmm.
my mother bought me my first ruby. I was a little girl, and she brought me a ruby ring, and I thought it was the most beautiful ring in the world.
Wow.
And I loved it so much. And I said, "Mommy, this is beautiful." And she said, "Yes." She says, "Because red means power,
Mm-hmm.
and you have all the power to
In
do
the world.
whatever it is you want to
That's right.
accomplish."
That's amazing. That's a great lesson. I really love that. Well, audience, you've heard it all. And, we have amazing guests. We've been having some amazing guests this whole month. The retrograde is really giving us great things. And again, my name is Edna White. I am your life purpose coach on Keeping It Real on Purpose. And we actually thank you. Thank you, guest. Thank you because you brought some insight onto what we know about moms and what we know about sons. Nijaah Howard, I appreciate you, and my audience appreciates you, who is the single mom's coach. She's helping single mothers and their sons to overcome systemic injustice and negative stereotypes, building self-esteem and competency. Tell us how we can reach you other than www.nijaahhoward.com.
You can reach me on all social media platforms. You can also reach me at youngmenstrong.com, where you'll also find information about my organization for young men as well as their mothers. And you'll also find that I'm also the publisher of Thoughts Magazine, which is the essence magazine for men, so we can empower our young boys growing into manhood, and see positive role models in their community. So you can reach me there. And I just like to add that, Edna, thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. And, my motto is that when we strengthen our boys and men, we stabilize our girls and women.
Wonderful. I am so excited. Thank you. I'm, welcome. You're welcome for, accepting because you didn't have to accept. But we connected and we're both our authentic selves. So it just happened to work. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of this episode. Thanks to our guest, Nijaah Howard, for joining us during this explosive discussion of mothers and their sons. We hope the value that we brought to the audience today in this episode will bless you always. Remember, as always, thank you for listening to Keeping It Real. And remember, draw abundance, have happiness, and a whole lot of fun. This is Edna White and Nijaah Howard signing off.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. And now I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free and each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.